Welcome, everyone. I'm Chris Cunningham with the Framework Podcast, where I dive in with entrepreneurs from all over the world. And I'm very excited for this one because Craig, years ago, maybe I remember this, really helped me get my morning routine. It's one of the first really books I went through and applied. So Craig Ballantyne, multiple author, welcome to the show.
This is going to be a lot of fun, Chris.
I'm ready to dive in. So look, obviously we got the book up here, The Dark Side of Discipline. But before we get into all that, I want people to know about you. I know you're all about discipline. I know you're all about saving time for entrepreneurs, but what about a time in your life when you were not disciplined? Is there a time? Do you remember that?
Absolutely. So, my background is I grew up in a small town in Canada, near Toronto, and in my small town, what you do is you drink beer and play hockey, or you play hockey and drink beer. It doesn't matter which order, that's what you're going to do. And those two things stayed with me for a long time. They influenced the career I wanted to go into, which was a strength and conditioning coach in the National Hockey League. That was my high school dream.
That'd been awesome.
But I was a binge drinker. And so eventually I became a personal trainer. And I was a personal trainer at the same time I was a binge drinker. And that hypocritical lifestyle was a misalignment for me. And as a result of that, I ended up in the emergency room twice with, what I thought was a heart attack. But, so I have a little tip for everybody watching. Like, if you ever go to the emergency room and it's really, really busy and you walk in and you really want to get to the back really fast, just tell them you're having a heart attack, because they take you like right to the back right away. So if you have like a sprained ankle or something, but you don't have time for the wait, you just get
I was stealing that, because I've had to wait too long.
Yeah, so that was like the lowest point in my life. And, there was a little bit of discipline and structure and routine in my life before that, but there was also a lot of undisciplined activities and decisions that I made. And so after that, I started identifying the systems that really gave me a path towards freedom and structure and routine.
What got you to that point? Because I think this is one of my favorite things about Tony Robbins. Everyone has a point, right? Mm-hmm. Was it when you're sitting in that hospital bed? Was it, when you were thinking about the next steps of your life? What was that point where you're like, I'm going to make a change, a radical change?
Yeah, it was a good question. So the first time that I went to the emergency room was on New Year's Day. So I had like a bender, and it's like a whole bunch of exhaustion from like personal training in the morning and then drinking at night. I don't know how you did both, yeah. Yeah, but that's youthful energy, right? Yeah. and then after the first one, it took a couple of days and then I was back to normal. And then all of a sudden I degraded back into the bad habits. So it took me a second time where I had another really, really big bender on a weekend. And then the next anxiety attack I had was 6 weeks long. So I woke up every single morning really early because I couldn't sleep, with tingling at the top of my head all the way down to the end of my fingertips. I had elevated heart rate, tight chest, couldn't breathe. And I just went on trying to live my life while at the same time like hiding this. So I'm a personal trainer, like, taking people through workouts and like just trying to hide all of that. And then after 6 weeks of this, then I had this one client on a Monday morning, and he was about 5'2", 310 pounds. He was a stressed out lawyer. And I just looked at him about halfway through the workout and I said, "Can you take me to the hospital?" And he must have thought I had two heads, right? Because I didn't look like there was anything wrong with me. I was in the best shape of my life. I was a young guy, and he took me to the hospital again. And so that was the lowest point. But it wasn't until like a couple weeks later, after I'd gone through like a bunch of stuff. I did Tai Chi, yoga, meditation, Qigong, all this stuff to get rid of it. It was one morning I woke up. It was about 7:30 in the morning. And to me, that's late. Like, I'm an early morning guy. And so, 7:30 in the morning, I rolled over. You can tell how long ago this was. I started checking my BlackBerry for messages like immediately. And I realized, like, I don't like how I feel right now. And so I decided then, 5 minutes earlier tomorrow, I'm going to get up at 7:25, and I'm not going to check my phone until 7:35. Now, notice I didn't like join the 5 a.m. club, because I didn't do anything unrealistic. I just decided to make that 5-minute decision. And then I followed that for the next 7 days. And then I turned up the dial and I went to 5 more minutes. And then now I had a 20-minute window. And then the week after that, it was 30 minutes. And the week after that, it was 40. And eventually got to the point where it was 5:30 in the morning. I was getting up and I wasn't checking my email until 9:30. And the amount of damage that you can do on your to-do list with 4 hours of no distractions, I was blown away. And that just changed the course of my life.
All right. So what age are you at this time when you first found this? Like,
about 29 when this happened.
29
so
when you
it should have happened way earlier, but so it was 29.
Okay, so after that, then what's the next thing you jumped into? So you're not going to be a trainer anymore.
Well, I was building an online business. So, I know there's a lot of people listening to this that are young. I probably have sold stuff on the internet before some of them were born.
January
28th, 2001 was the day I sold my first product on the internet.
Yeah. Wish I jumped on it back
Yeah.
then.
And it was a Word document that I sold through PayPal. So it wasn't a PDF.
No
it wasn't
way.
a PDF. It was a Word document that I sold through PayPal. And I sold it for $60 American. And I use American because I'm from Canada.
Sure.
And back then, just like it is kind of now, that was like $200 Canadian, right? So I was like, jackpot. But I had gotten one lucky break the year before. I had already started an email newsletter list. And I sent one thing to the Men's Health magazine fitness editor. And so Men's Health at the time, back when magazines were actually a thing, it was the biggest.
Yeah.
Like circulation of 3 million people. And he said, oh, this is good. We can publish this. And that was my critical credibility. And for anybody who's an entrepreneur, I emphasize critical credibility. And this can be anything from like 30 seconds on your local TV station. It can be like a newspaper column. It doesn't have to be anything crazy, but it's like a crowbar that you use to jam in the door and open up your doors. Because for me, because I was the Men's Health guy now, I'm introverted by nature, but I do what's called introverted networking, where I sit behind my computer and I just send out messages to people. But now I could say, I'm a young person. I was 25 at that time. I'm the Men's Health person. I write for Men's Health. Can I interview you for my newsletter? And this is back before podcasts, YouTube, anything. So it's all email questions, right? And so it was so easy, and everybody said yes. And then they would share it, and then that's how I grew my little world. And so I was slowly every year, less personal training, more online. And then in 2006, ironically, at the same time that I had my anxiety attacks, I was able to go full time. I hired my first coach that year and had a big product launch, made more money in 3 days than I did in like almost 3 years before it. And all of a sudden the internet opened wide and I had all this freedom, which actually, as if anybody who's listening to this is going from a corporate job to being an entrepreneur on their own, I'd say like 80 or 90% of people struggle with this, because they go from like, you show up at this time and you stay here till this time and you have these meetings on our schedule, to going and like now you have this open calendar. And it's the paradox of choice, right? Because you could do anything at any time. And a lot of new entrepreneurs struggle with that because they're like, I could do anything. I could work at any time. I could be a night owl. I could be a morning person. I struggled with that at the start too. I was like, oh, it's really cool to work till like 11, midnight,
Sure.
But it wasn't right for me and probably contributed to some of the anxiety. But once you get the structure in your life and you have your days structured out, you're going to feel so much better because you're going to know exactly what to do at the right time. You just have to implement that for yourself based on like some of the systems that we teach.
And you got to test it. Everything is testing, right? Mm-hmm. It's marketing, it's life. So you might try working out in the morning. Maybe it's best for you. Some people might be in need. For me, I think I'm middle of the day.
Yeah.
I like to work for a bit, take that break, work out. What is yours? What is your day now? Because
so now that I have 3 kids under 3, my life or my day is actually not that much different because I built such a system and routines around it. So right now, I used to get up on an alarm at 3:57 a.m. because I like to use a little different time.
I'm the same way.
The Rock gets up at 3:45, and Mark Wahlberg gets up at 2:00 in the morning or something. So I don't get up as early as those guys, but I get up. I trained my body, so now I get up around 3:30 in the morning. Depends if one of the kids is screaming. I might get up a little bit earlier, and then I go to work. So I'm a big believer in no morning routine, no meditation, no yoga.
Same as
Hermosi. Right, exactly. Like just get up and go to work. Because I grew up on a farm in Canada, and my dad, he got up and went right to work. And I thought, okay, that's how it works. Looks like it's pretty effective. So I decided to go with the exact same approach. And because I'm actually, unmotivated and kind of lazy as well. And so I built the system that knowing that if I tried to do my hardest work at 2:00 in the afternoon, it's probably not going to happen, or it's going to happen at a very slow rate. But if I get up and go right to work in the morning, I'm going to be 3 times, 4 times, 5 times, maybe even 7 or 10 times more productive than I am at any other time of the day. There's fewer distractions. You have the greatest discipline, willpower, and intention first thing in the morning. So I go right at it from 4 to 6. Kids get up. I'm with them from 6 to 8. We have a couple of nannies that show up and take care of the kids during the day. So then it really is buy back your time.
That's why I'm making money. I'm getting
exactly. And I know people are like, oh man, that must be nice. I hear that all the time when I mention that.
You can do it.
It is nice, but even if you can't do full time and you can't do 2, especially for new dads, because I get a lot of new dads asking me questions. I'm like, you have to buy your wife back some time because
for the relationship.
Imagine, it's hard on the dad, but I mean, imagine being the wife with like, especially if the mom is breastfeeding, you got a kid attached to you 24 hours a day. You don't have time to shower, to eat. And, you know, my wife had 3 C-sections. So emergency C-section, and then the other ones were just so close that she had to. You know, there's a rehab and recovery, and there's a rehab and recovery for natural birth too. But if, you know, the mom doesn't have any time to do any of this stuff, man, it can wear you down really fast. And I know a lot of people are like, no, we don't need that. And after 2 weeks, they're like, oh man, yeah, you know, we recommend night nurse so that you can sleep. Like even if you get a couple nights per week, so that you can sleep more than 3 or 2 hours at a time. And then during the daytime, even if it's twice a week, you give your wife 3 hours of a babysitter, nanny, whatever you want to call it. You know, especially if you don't have family around, she needs that. Otherwise, you know, there's just going to be this. Because here's the greatest advice that I ever got. As a new parent, you can be tired and your wife can be tired, but you can't be tired at the same time.
Ooh.
So what that means is like, because everybody knows what happens.
Someone's got it, yeah.
Right. If 2 people are tired, you know, oh, can you get me a diaper becomes, you know, a blowout fight, right? You know, just because you're at the end of your ropes.
I gotta get ready for this.
So my wife and I we just like did some introspection and like, you know, I'm really good personally. If I can sleep from about 8 until 1, like 8 p.m. till 1 a.m., I'm actually really good. Like for some reason, few hours before midnight, I'm good to go. She needs a little bit more sleep and she wanted to sleep longer. So we just decided, we communicated with each other. And that's one of the key things is you must take your communication to the next level, especially the more kids you get. And it was just like, I'm going to sleep early. You're going to take care of the baby. If the baby falls asleep at 10, you're going to stay up till 10. Kind of sucks for her, but you know, but then you get to sleep till 6. Because if the baby gets up at 1 o'clock in the morning, it's daddy daycare until 6 o'clock in the morning. And so we just worked that out. And honestly, you know, for the first couple of months, with a bit of help from a nanny and night nurse, the first couple of months on me were pretty simple. And, you know, physically it was just tough on my wife. Yeah. So anyways, back to, you know, my whole day, it's like from when the nannies show up at 8, I work from 8 till 11 again. Then I go to the gym, like, you know,
midday.
Similar, yeah,
I
midday.
Love the midday. I love it.
Midday, and then I'm back to work from about 1 until 4, and usually in the afternoons I do stuff like this.
Money.
Yeah,
Perfect.
And then 4 to 8, family time.
Got it.
Yeah.
So you're disciplined on that. It took me time to learn mine. I used to just be a wake up for my meetings. Mm-hmm. And I remember when you gave me your book, it was perfect day formula. Yep. And a lot of us, I remember like writing it out. And I remember having that same revelation, or whatever you want to call it, when it's like, okay, well, if I get up at 6, now all of a sudden I have this extra time. Yeah. I can get this done. But for me, I found my own way of dialing it. For me, it's like I still will do. What I do is I try not to look at my phone or computer for the first like just 5 minutes. Like I just try to think, chill, let my thoughts come in from the night, and then think of what I want to get done for the day. Then I write it down. I like to usually write. I like to write something. So I'll start writing, like, okay, I need to get this done. Maybe I'll rewrite my goals, like, you know, get my business to X a month, get this many new viewers to click up, etc. And then I kind of think of what I can do that day to get it going. Then I go hit it.
Nice.
So I'm similar to you on that. But I am obsessed with something you said earlier, buying your time back. I think there's Dan Martell's book, right? He's awesome. Yeah. There's the E-Myth. You know,
yeah, I mean, that's classic. I read that in 2000.
Chris Vasquez just gave it to me. I'm just like, because he was like, hey, I was telling him that's one thing I really want to dive into now. And he's like, check the E-Myth.
Wow.
So I'm reading it. I just started it 2 days ago.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I'm catching up on that one. But I think that is one of the big secrets that people don't realize, because it's very easy in your business to become like an employee of your business. But once, I feel like everyone I know who's very successful, once they've learned that, that's they're always looking for what they can either, you know, automate or assign.
Yeah, we have a system in our business: automate, delegate, and eliminate. And so, you know, obviously the automations, ClickUp is amazing for that. Yeah. The delegation is making sure that you're not doing someone else's job. And, you know, I use this, I've reframed it in people's brains, because a lot of people want to hang on to the things that they do, right?
Sure.
It's like, you know, nobody can do
no
this.
No one can do it like me.
Yeah, or, you know, like, it's going to take me so much time to find somebody and train them. But, you know, we have people who are making $1 million a year, you know, as their personal income, and they're still doing their own bookkeeping. They're still doing their own editing of videos. And the reframe that I give people is, listen, if I hired you to do bookkeeping in my business, how long would you last? Would you even make it to lunchtime? No, I would fire you, because you're not good at it. And here's the thing, is that you're doing a C-level job of a very important thing in the most important business in your life, which is your own. And, you know, would you really tolerate that in somebody else doing? No.
No way.
But so when they hear that, they go, oh yeah, you're right. And in this day and age of Upwork, Fiverr, ClickUp, even stuff for physical stuff like TaskRabbit.com.
I love TaskRabbit.
Oh my gosh.
I'm moving in 2 weeks.
I am done with IKEA and Wayfair. Forget about it.
Think about it.
No.
It doesn't make us less of a man either. It's my time. No. I can go make whatever X amount online and that out. Like, why would I do that? The task alone are worth that. I think it's an hourly rate. That's what Robbie and a lot of people talk about. They have an hourly rate.
Right. Your buyback, Martell calls it the buyback rate. We call it our hourly worth. And it's just, an easy math is, you take your annual income and you divide it by 2,000, because if you think you work 40 hours a week for 50 weeks in a year, that's your 2,000 hours. And then you really just, okay, so if I make $200,000 divided by 2,000, I'm $100 an hour hourly rate. And the challenge is, it's easy for oh yeah, this is $15. Obviously, I'm going to delegate that. I can take, well, maybe in this day and age of inflation, a little bit higher, right? But TaskRabbit, $25, someone's going to come and build out 19 shelves from IKEA. Obviously, I'm going to farm that out. But where it gets tricky is when it's like the $75 an hour thing, and people are like, oh man, 75. But if you buy back that, here's another way of looking at it. If your average hour is $100 and you're doing all these things that are $10 or $20 an hour, what does that mean? Well, there must be something that's $200 or $300 an hour that you're doing that raises the average, obviously, from the 10 or 20.
Absolutely.
So you need to get rid of everything below so that you can go do that, and then work your way up to the $1,000 an hour tasks. We have a little shtick in our business where we tell people that in order to be a multimillionaire, you have to live like a billionaire. So this is kind of like a 1990s billionaire, because if you think about the one person that always pops in my mind is Michael Bloomberg. So imagine Michael Bloomberg in 1990. What's he got? He's got a private chef. He's got a driver. He's got somebody doing all his assistant and all this stuff. Well, in 2025, you have Uber. Why are you driving anywhere? Driving downtown in any city, whether it's Miami, I live in Vancouver, LA, what are you doing? You shouldn't be driving, or let alone trying to find parking. You should be in the back working, because you're gonna get an extra hour to a day. And then private chef, you can even have a private chef come to your house and do all the groceries for $700 a week. We've had multiple clients do it, and that's right around the price range. And that buys in the back 10 or 15 hours a week.
Absolutely.
If you don't want to do that, just order meal services. There's Icon meals. There's so many of these things that you can do, and just so on and so on. You can have the best sleep setup for about $2,000 or $3,000. The best mattress, the best pillows, blackout blinds, all this stuff that a billionaire would have if they were in charge of their sleep setup. Everything you want, you can do for pennies on the dollar today to buy back your time. It is not truly that expensive of a procedure to get back 10, 15, 20, 30 hours a week.
It's not. You can Uber Black, you can 8 sleep.
Right.
Next thing you know, you're there. The
exactly.
Blackout blinds are not that big of a deal.
No.
You can do it all. But I think too many people sleep on that, or they think they just shouldn't. I think people almost have it's if they don't have it so much, they feel I don't say they're against money, but they almost
Well, I mean, it's a curse, right? So You came from middle class, I came from not poverty, but pretty lower middle class, right? And so, my mom lives on an acre. She has huge lawn. You know who cuts her lawn? She's 82. She does not cut the lawn. She does the trimming. Her 87-year-old brother cuts the lawn. She has
nuts.
Plenty of money.
It's probably $50, $150.
Right. But she grew up on a farm, she didn't have a lot of money, etc. And then that's passed on to me, right? Because when she sees, she's kind of over it now, because she's seen me doing this for 25 years, but you don't clean your own, she doesn't even have a cleaning lady, and her house is 3,000 square feet. And she just lives by herself, but she will not allow a cleaning lady to come in the house, right? It's just so old school mentality. And so when she came over to my house, when I had those anxiety attacks, I lived in a 400 square foot apartment. I still had a cleaning lady.
Of course,
right?
I've always had. I mean, I have to have one.
Right.
For peace of mind,
Right. And so she was you can't clean your own house, you can't cook your own meal. But that's just the way it is for generally the people listening. But we come with that generational curse, and it's harder on women too, right? Especially if a woman is in a relationship and then the mother-in-law or whatever, it's oh, you don't even cook the meals for the kids, or you don't even do the kids' laundry, or oh my gosh, you have a babysitter or a nanny. Now there's all that. And so I love speaking to female entrepreneur groups, because I'm this guy who comes in and says, yeah, you were not, what I say is you were not put here on this earth to do the laundry, to mow your lawn, and I'm not degrading people that do that for a living, because I've done manual labor and I think it's honest work. Some people were put here on this earth to do that sort of stuff. It's just like with bookkeeping. Everybody thinks, I hate bookkeeping. Everybody must hate bookkeeping. No.
Some people love it.
Right.
And that's the ones that my bookkeeper loves bookkeeping.
Right. And so when you are doing bookkeeping at a C level, you are stealing joy from somebody else. That's the thing that's got to get you over the finish line, to delegate the thing, because you're doing a crappy job. It's taking so much time, you're stressed out, and you're stealing joy from somebody else. Just delegate. Because you were not put here on this earth to do that. You were put here on this earth to take your mission, your message, share it with the world, increase your impact, increase your income, take that money and do good things with it, grow your network, have events, bring people. That's what you were put here to do. Just like Oprah. And now, in one of my books, I don't think you have this one, The Perfect Week Formula.
I have that one.
Okay, yeah, right.
I have that book.
Yeah. So we talk about Oprah being Nopra, the queen of no.
Perfect Day Formula and Perfect Week.
Perfect Day, then Unstoppable, which is a book about
I have Perfect Week too. You sent me that one as well.
Yeah. So I owe you Unstoppable. But we talk about Oprah being, I call her Nopra, the queen of no. Because if you think about Oprah, who has billion followers or whatever, right? Every single one of those people would love a minute of her time.
Of course.
Now, if she gave away 1 billion minutes, what would she get done? Nothing, right? So she has to say no to the good in order to do the great. And it's the same with, when she was setting up her show years ago. Did she do the lighting? No. Did she do the catering? Did she figure out how the guest was getting from the airport to the show?
Not a chance.
Not her job. Not her job. And so you have to look in your business and say, what is not my job? And then the next level is, what do I need to fire myself from? And then you go and you do that. And when you figure out what's not your job and what you have to fire yourself from and where you need to eliminate distractions, now you claw back that time and you start. First of all, you can just work less if you want. By all means, go ahead. Or you can start to do more impactful things in that time. And now all of a sudden your reach, your influence is going to grow dramatically, because you are not the bottleneck anymore. You're not the constraint in the machine.
I love the work and I fire myself. I'm looking at that on my own. There's still things I'm doing where I shouldn't. I'm really on this kick right now.
And it's almost like you have to do it every 90 days, 6 months at the max. Because
it's start doing something.
It's all slippery slope, man. It all just creeps back in. It's like when you clean your garage and then 3 weeks later, man, where'd this stuff come from again? It's like the little tasks multiply. But you have to do that. And it's probably best that if you either have a coach or a mentor or somebody holding you accountable to it, and you communicating I got to stop doing this, and then check in with them, because that's the thing. When you're checking in and you're being held accountable by somebody, that's when you're really going to follow through on it.
So look, we definitely nailed buying your time back, but I think the biggest thing we need to dive into for everyone is how discipline has changed your life, right?
Yeah.
I think when it comes down to it, it's why so many of your books are about discipline. Mm-hmm. I think if we go back, that's probably your formula. What would you say is your framework to having proper discipline? Because it's one thing, I think discipline is something that everyone knows about it.
Yeah.
But not everyone knows how to be effective with it. They might think they are. They might do it for a day. They might do it for a week. What is the formula or the framework that you've built when it comes to discipline?
Yeah, so when we say discipline, most people, what they think of is they think of this white knuckling, 7 o'clock at night, I'm starving, and put chocolate cake in front of me and I'm just going to fight it with discipline. And you're going to lose every time. That's not discipline. Technically it's willpower, and technically it's what people might call discipline, but that's not sustainable. And what sustainable discipline is really systems. And when you have systems in place, systems serve to make the right actions automatic. Because naturally, even though people call me a very disciplined person, I would love to wake up late. I would love to eat chocolate cake and watch college football, all Saturday, awesome, right? That's what I would naturally gravitate towards doing that. But I want something more. I want to achieve things. I want to write books and be successful. And so I realized at a young age, right around the time, it's when I was getting up at 7:30 in the morning, I need to build a system for this. And even if the system was simply I'm going to set the alarm 5 minutes earlier, and I'm going to not turn my phone on for 5 minutes later. That's part of a system. And so over the years, we've just refined this to what we call effortless discipline systems. And we talk about it in the book. And it's very simple, because if it's complex, people won't follow it.
Every time.
Right. So we want to keep it as simple as possible. There's 3 phases: elimination, preparation, and connection. So when I was a binge drinker, I didn't want to be a binge drinker. And so I got out of that through elimination, preparation, and connection. It goes like this. So elimination was make the bad habit as hard as possible to do. This is classic James Clear, Atomic Habits.
Put as
much friction as possible in the way of the bad habit. So if you're a drinker, it's eliminate the alcohol from the house, which was not a problem because I was more of a Saturday night drinker. But it was eliminate yourself from obvious drinking environments.
Cut some friends.
Yeah. Then eliminate the toxic people whose only point in life was to drag me to drinking, right? So there's some people that are going to fit in that category. Then there's going to be those people who you don't want to cut from your life. And I hate, one of the things that I see on Instagram all the time is like, go dark, go, 6 months.
Monk mode.
Right. It's like,
disappear.
Listen, if you want to raise a nation of school shooters, yes, go. That's great. But if, people are meant to be around people and be social. So cutting all your friends is dumb advice from some 21-year-old who saw from some other 21-year-old, and it really makes me angry because I think, and a little bit off topic here, but I think you'll agree is that as we've grown, our circle has just gotten bigger.
Massively bigger. And I hear this all the time about, cut it all. I learn more from hanging out on a Sunday, with some of my friends here, like just hang out with entrepreneurs. Anyone who's in this level and growing, they're going to throw you a tip. They're going to throw you a book they read. They're going to throw you something they realized, a breakthrough they had.
Yeah. And one of my phrases that I live by is that everything in your life is easier when you know more good people.
Ooh.
Everything in life is easier. Everything.
It is easier. So you guys want to call for everything.
Yeah, like if you know 10 people, so if you want to go to vacation, take your kids to Disney, and you only know 10 people, you're going to get, you might know one person who's taking their kid to Disney.
Maybe.
But if you know 1,000 people, you might know 300 people who've taken their kids to Disney, and you're going to get way better advice, right?
They'll give you a whole Apple Note that has everything broken down.
Right. And so everything in my life, from all the money that I've made to getting in shape to even meeting my wife, all came because I knew good people. Like I met my wife because I asked a bunch of girls who had large social circles for introductions. That's how it worked. So very simple.
Pretty smooth.
Yeah.
Who needs a matchmaker?
Right. Well, I met the girls because I actually did use a matchmaker, but the matchmaker knew a whole bunch of people too, right? So it's all, and I met the matchmaker from Joe Polish, who runs Genius Network, and he knows everybody. So it's simply just knowing more and more good people eventually led me down to the path of getting introduced to my wife. But anyways, back to the effortless discipline system. So you have the elimination, and so we've eliminated the toxic people. But what do you do with the people who are good people, but just always have bad habits with you? Well, what I decided to do was I didn't want to give up my friendships of 20 or 30 years with my drinking buddies who were good people, who I'd known forever.
Sure.
So what I decided to do was just better planning and preparation to hang out with those people in non-drinking environments. So Saturday morning, I would plan and prepare to go to the gym or go on a hike with somebody. And then Saturday afternoon, they were going to start drinking. And I was like, I got to stay out of that environment, have a good time. So that was a better planning and preparation part. And then the final part is the connection. And this is another word that we use for accountability. And we've talked about that a little bit before. But there's two ways that accountability are really the missing link. Because everybody wakes up on January 1st with these goals like, oh, this year I'm going to lose weight, stop drinking, make money. And they tell nobody. And when you tell no one, you're the easiest person to let down, yourself, right? So what you have to do is when you want to make a big change in your life, is you have to burn the boats. And you have to either tell one person, and we call that one person, it must be somebody that you deeply do not want to disappoint.
Yeah.
When you have accountability to somebody you deeply do not want to disappoint, you will move mountains in your life. Because for me, it was Bedros Keuilian. So I met Bedros Keuilian, who's he's a big influencer.
He's a great guy.
Yeah, he and I met.
He's a real one.
Yeah, totally, man. He is he's really tough on the outside, but man, he's a teddy bear inside. And so, he and I have been friends, business partners, and coaching clients of each other since 2009. And we spent a lot of time with each other over the years running masterminds. And I had a bunch of coaches before, and I did most of the work they said, but I never did 100% of what they said. And when I hired him, I just looked up to him as like a big brother. And so if he said, jump 2 feet, I would jump 2.5 feet. I'd do exactly what he said and more, because I looked up to him and I was like, I deeply do not want to disappoint this person. And so if you can find that person in your life that you deeply do not want to disappoint, you will move mountains. You will really go to the ends of the earth to make those changes. Now, if you don't have that, the next thing is a community of like-minded positive people. And this is a burn the boats moment, like where you stand up in front of the group, whether it's virtual works just as well as in person, and you say, hey, listen, at the end of 90 days, I'm going to lose 20 pounds. At the end of 90 days, I'm going to have first draft of my book done. At the end of 90 days, XYZ. That's what I did with this. January 1st, 2024.
Oh, yeah, you did.
I emailed all my coaching clients and I said, I'm going to have the rough draft done by March 16th, 2024. And there were days when I got up and I sat in front of the computer and I'm like, I don't want to do this. I don't want to do this. I don't want to do this. I got to do this. I told people I was going to do this, because if you tell people that you're going to do something and you're a person of any integrity, you don't want to be a hypocrite. It's like, people who steal old ladies' purses, hypocrite. It's like so bad. You don't want to be a hypocrite. And so you will follow through on it. Because before I did the business coaching business, I was in the fitness industry for so long, right? And we had these 12-week transformation contests where, they could win my money, they could enter for free, and still 80% of people would quit. It'd be like 12-week program, and you'd hear from them for a couple days and gone. The people who stayed, because I analyzed this after like 10, 20, 30 contests, the people who stayed, it wasn't like that they were married and had money. It was sometimes single moms with like 3 kids who would win the contest. And I'm like, how is this possible? Like, what is it special about these people? And it was always the people, what they did, there was one thing they did. On day one, they took one of those ugly before photos, like belly out, horrible lighting, hair a mess, in their horrible outfit, and they posted it in the group, because that was a burn the boats moment to the group and it was like, then all these other people who, because it was online forum, people all over the world, complete strangers, all these people like would come and be checking in on them all the time. So they had this accountability, and they didn't want to disappoint those people, so they rode it through to the end. And that was the missing link. And so when you're trying to get rid of any bad habit or start any new habit, you eliminate the bad, you make the path as hard as possible, put as much friction in the way as you can, and then you plan and prepare to do the right thing as much as you can and make the path to success smooth, grease the groove is what we say, and then you get connection, you get accountability to either someone you deeply do not want to disappoint or to the group. And that's it. And you put those 3 things in place, and if you're addicted to your phone or pornography or whatever it is, you can kick it to the curb. You really can.
It makes perfect sense, because I think we all know someone we don't want to disappoint.
Yeah.
You at least have one person, like yours is Bedros, mine would be Andy Frisella. I'd hate to disappoint, that's why I finally finished 75 hard.
Nice.
But you have that one person you don't want to tell them, no, I actually I couldn't do that. I couldn't do the thing I told you I was going to do, because integrity is, we all know how, like, we all can kind of tell someone by their integrity. Yeah. Like, there's people who that you'll call that will get something done. There's people that might 50-50 get done, right? You don't want to be one of those 50-50.
No. And so we've helped people do everything, especially around the phone. Like, the phone is a real problem for a lot of people. And so, if you walk through the effortless discipline systems for that, it's use something like the Opal app. Have you ever seen that?
Opal, there's Get Brick. You seen Get Brick?
Yeah, one of our friends uses that one too.
What I do is I have 2 phones. My main one just has my regular and no social media on it.
See, that's a system.
Yeah, it's my system.
That is a system.
Because I still need to be on social to post and do my thing. So I have my old phone has all my social.
Yeah.
My new one doesn't. So I can't go scroll or anything like that. I can only be productive when I'm on that phone. But everyone has their own. But you have to have some system, and you have to keep it away at night. I think it's very key. Otherwise, you'll start picking up right away. It's just an unhealthy.
Exactly. And so whatever it is that somebody has to do is just build these systems that then make, there's less decision fatigue, it's a whole lot easier for you to do it, for you to follow through, and the accountability is that missing link. Because if you've ever been like, man, I've started these things in the past, I've tried to do this, it's because you haven't told somebody what you're doing, and then when that kicks in, you're gonna follow through to the end.
Now, what would you say is the dark side of discipline, right?
So
that's why I was so fascinated and I was excited to get this book, is because like everyone always thinks of just the beautiful side of it, but is the dark side going into more of what you have to do to get there? Or
well, no, actually, it's the journey that people go on and the expectations they're going to have from it. So there's 2 aspects to it. There's the transferability, which people think that if I do X, like let's say I do 100 push-ups in 100 days, which is a common challenge, which I absolutely despise because it's so random. Like
it is random. What is that really doing?
Well, yeah, like why not 120 push-ups in 120 days? It reminds me of that skit from Everybody Loves Mary. Somebody Loves Mary.
Yeah.
Something about Mary.
Something about Mary.
Yeah,
I'm getting
right. It's like nobody does abs in 6 minutes. It's like 7-minute abs, 7 minutes, and it's so random. It's like why 100 push-ups in 100 days? So it's totally useless. Probably going to give you an overuse injury.
Yeah.
And here's the thing: it's just because you do 100 push-ups in 100 days Doesn't mean that your marriage is going to get better. Doesn't mean that you're going to become a better father. Doesn't mean people will come to me and say, I want to be more disciplined. But if I had 1,000 people say that to me, Chris, it could be 1,000 different things. One person wants to be better with their phone. One person wants to stop drinking so much. One person wants to stop using so much Netflix. It's a generic term. And so when they think that if I do this thing, whether it's a cold plunge or workout twice a day and everything else is going to change, they're going to be disappointed in that. And Tiger Woods is the greatest example of this, right? Because in 2007 or 8, whenever Tiger Woods was number one, he was the world's most disciplined golfer. That's what the other guys referred to him as. He was on the range 12 hours a day, even though he's number one in the world. Now, what else was he doing? He was cheating on his wife with 10, 20, 30 women. So here's a man who was the world's most disciplined and
still found time.
He was very effective with his time. And the world's most undisciplined inside the same human. So you see, just because he was great at golf and discipline and routines there didn't transfer into him being disciplined in every area. So you will be disappointed about that. But that's not the only dark side of it. The real dark side is that a lot of people are sacrificing the great for the good. So they're going in. I use the reading a book a week. That's a good thing, right? Like, oh man, I read a book a week, I read 50 books. Like, that's kind of a common thing on the internet, right? But the same people that are reading books a week, I hear from them all the time saying, oh man, I really want to write a book. And then I'll see them 6 months later. Like, hey, how's the book going? Because I'm an author. I love to see other people write books. Oh man, I haven't started. But you're reading a book a week, which is a good thing. But it's getting in the way of the great. Or you're working out twice a day, but it's getting in the way of you having difficult conversations with your spouse or your partner, or that working out twice a day is taking away from family time, which is great, which is the most important thing. And working out's good, but if it sacrifices the great, there's a dark side to it. It becomes a bad thing.
So it's prioritizing properly.
Exactly.
What is the great versus the good.
Right. So in the book, we talk about the ultimate definition of discipline is putting a level 10 effort into your level 10 problem. And everything else is just entertainment. It really is. Because I know people who go in cold plunge all the time, but they will not have the difficult conversation with their spouse about how the marriage has gone cold. Like that, okay, if you're not going to have that conversation, that's not discipline.
Nothing for you. It's not giving you the energy to go do that.
Exactly. And people who have business partnerships or things go wrong, or they got a cancerous team member, that's great. You do triathlons, and you're disciplined in the triathlon, but you're not disciplined in your business where you need to have difficult conversations with people. This is the level 10 problem, and you're ignoring it. And that's what we see way too often, because that thing eventually is going to destroy you. And I wrote this book because one of my friends who I'd known for a long time, and I watched him get married to a great woman, and I watched him have kids, I watched him build a multiple 7-figure business, watch him have everything, six-pack abs, all that sort of stuff. And then, he would see these discipline things online. He'd go and do them. And I'm like, I already know you're really busy. And I already know like your business is keeping you busy and your family's keeping you busy. Like, where are you getting the time to do all this stuff? And then it would go on and on and on. And like, eventually this can't turn out well. And sure enough, after he did a bunch of that stuff, his wife left him with kids. And like, now you get to see your kids once every 2 weeks because you impressed a bunch of people on the internet.
For what? Yeah.
Yeah, for what? Exactly. And so that's the dark side. And so what we need to do, first of all, is just like with the perfect week formula, is we make sure that we put what really matters on the calendar before we start throwing the little stuff into it, is we have to make sure that our entire lives are built around attacking the level 10 problems and giving them the time and effort that they need. And then if we have time left over, we can go and do these things. If you want to do 100 push-ups in 100 days, have at it. I don't care. But if it's getting in the way of you having that conversation with your wife,
as you're saying this, I'm looking back to 26-year-old Cunningham, and I'm like, I'll just be like, oh, like I had this parking ticket, I'm gonna let that go. Or this conversation I have, I need to work, right? Just always say, oh, I'm building ClickUp, I'm building this. This doesn't matter.
It's all good, but it's getting in the way of stuff that's sometimes more important.
Exactly. So what I'm understanding is so the dark side of discipline is a step deeper than everyone else has talked about discipline. It's actually thinking about rating, knowing where to put the time, where to put the discipline. Because again, I think you call it discipline, willpower, whatever. But again, we only have so much of it. You can only attack with so many things, right? We can't attack everything perfectly. So I think picking those things is a big part of it then.
Yeah. So listen, discipline for me when I was a binge drinker, discipline was my savior, right?
Yeah. You still were jacked. I mean, most people can't get jacked without drinking.
Right.
I'm still working on it.
Exactly.
It's not easy.
But it got me out of that. It got me over my introverted tendencies. It got me through anxiety. It got me out of being a binge drinker. And so it was a savior up to a point. And then I crossed the line where even I had an exercise streak of 1,000 days. But what's the point? Right? Like, there's no gold medals for this.
You're not getting paid more because of it.
And I was sacrificing more important things by, I can't go to this social event. I was using it as an excuse, as a crutch. And I missed out on things. Exercise good, yes, but doing this other stuff would have been more important. But instead I chased that discipline. And a lot of people are putting themselves in a prison of their own making by insisting that their morning routine has 18 things in it or something like that, or that they have to go and do 2 workouts per day, or that they have to do something. And if you have to do something in order to be effective, you become very fragile, not anti-fragile. And so the book is really meant to be a filter so that you look at everything that you do and you ask this simple question: is this serving me, or am I a servant to it? And so if your marriage has gone cold after 15 years because, now you got kids and you're driving them everywhere, and so you and your wife are just an Uber driver living with each other and you never get time for each other, that's a level 10 problem.
It's a massive problem.
And if you think, well, you know what, I'm just going to go and start doing triathlons to get my discipline, that's obviously...
I'm thinking of people right now who do this.
Right.
Good people too. Yeah.
And it's a perverse form of procrastination, because it's not like, I'm just going to get a 6-pack and watch Netflix at night. That's bad.
Yeah.
Triathlons, they're kind of good. It's exercise, so it's a good thing.
You get outside, you make a little community.
Right, but it's getting in the way of the great. Yeah. And that's because it's, to see my friends who have gone through this, and, the more that I talk about this, the more I hear from all these guys like, my wife was taking the kids to the beach and she said, "Are you coming?" And I said, "No, I got to do my second workout." And she looked at me with divorce-eyed death stare. And then I was like, "Okay, I'll go to the beach," and it's just like, it's interesting because when you're looking at other people who are doing those things, you see the folly in it, and you're like, what are you doing? That's ridiculous. Like, exercise 1,000 days in a row, or, not go to the beach with your family. That's just stupid.
Again, for what?
But when you are the person doing the thing, you're like, you're so myopic, and you have the blinders on. You're like, I can't miss this. Like, I have to run every day, or, and people just get that way.
Oh man. All right. So now I feel like I really have a better understanding of the formula now, because again, I think I too was one of those people who think of discipline as just like fighting the cake. And I do have one question about that. Do you ever eat chocolate cake?
Oh man, I eat chocolate cake all the time.
So it is, that's the thing. I feel like
because I've done the self-reflection and introspection to know what I can get away with.
Like when I go on a vacation, I want to too sometimes. Like when I work hard for a week, I want to have that. I want to mess around. Like there's a time I want to log off of work for a week. It's very hard for me to do, but I do want to, and I think there is a little bit of balance there. But again, you gotta have that routine. I think I should get better when I travel. That's like the hard thing. It throws me off a bit.
Oh man, travel's just another routine. Like it's just.
I'm sure you got it down. You hit your gym.
But think about this, because most people use that travel excuse, right?
It messes me up.
Yeah. And so there's 2 things that I see people do. Is one, because most people associate travel with vacation, and so when they go on a work trip, as soon as they enter the airport, it's like an amusement park.
Yeah, it's like I'm done. All right, where's the alcohol?
I see these business suit guys with a hot dog from Auntie Anne's. I'm like, what are you doing?
And they're drinking at 10 a.m.
Yeah.
They're in the Amex lounge. I go in the Amex lounge. Man, these people they don't care.
No, and it's just like, as soon as I'm in here, I'm at Six Flags, but it's an airport, and it's just, so there's that mistake there.
I'm not that bad, but yeah, I might miss.
There's that mistake there, but if you flip it and you go, okay, because I always think most entrepreneurs should treat themselves as a pro athlete.
Yeah.
So if you buy a ticket to, let's say you go to a Lakers game, right? And they played in New York the day before or something, and you show up and you paid like $1,000 for like a really good seat. And LeBron's like, but I went, we came through the airport and I went to Auntie Anne's, I got a hot dog, and I'm just not feeling it today. Like, you're gonna be ticked off, right? I paid $1,000 to see you play a horrible game. No, and he wouldn't do that because he's a pro. And so his travel is regimented and routine. And I've worked with, quite a few pro athletes and a lot of strength coaches who work with pro athletes. And if you talk to the best of the best, they've had the same oatmeal breakfast for every single day of their career for their 800 games. And they do the same thing every single day. Doesn't matter where you are.
No matter what.
And if, so people who went and saw Taylor on any of her tour, you think anybody's going to show up and go, she just flew in from Japan last night, so she's kind of crappy tonight. Well, we won't worry about it. I only paid, $12,000 and sold my first kid for this ticket. I brought the second kid.
Most people did, yeah.
And it's like, no, you go and you expect Taylor Swift to bang it out, best performance ever, because what is she? Professional. And it's the same sort of approach that we need to take when we travel. If we're traveling for work, we're professional. And I have in my backpack, I know exactly, I have a pocket assigned for everything. I know where everything is. Because I did way too many trips to Europe where you like wake up and you're like, oh my God. And
I've got that down to science. I'm speaking in Barcelona in a couple of weeks. I know exactly how I'm going to go to bed before.
Right. And it should be.
I'm not going to show up and not speak well.
That's exactly what it should be, down to a science when you travel for work. If you're traveling for vacation, a little bit of flexibility and stuff, but it's just the same mentality that goes with it. And then you perform at a high level because that's what's expected.
100%.
Yeah.
So who is this book for? Who's watching now that could use this and change their life?
That's a good question. And so I would say that, somebody who needs a lifeline, it will be helpful to them. But the people who it's really for, those high performers who, open up their Instagram Explore page and they're like, oh man, this week, nobody's running marathons anymore. Everybody's got to run ultra marathons. So I guess that's what I got to do now, or I got to go cold plunge for 25 minutes, or, I got to go jump in a frozen lake. They're very reactive to it. And they're just, adding another thing and another thing onto their checklist.
Without going deep.
Right. This book is going to ask you to do the hardest thing of all, because, everybody's posting on the internet. They're doing hard things right now. Like 30-second cold shower. I did a hard thing. No, that's not that hard.
For me, I do it every day.
The hardest thing of all for people to do in this day and age is to think.
And address real problems.
Right. So I want you to step back and I want you to figure out what really is the problems, what really are the problems in your life, or the opportunities. I say it's a level 10 problem, but it could be a level 10 opportunity. Like right now you have a level 10 opportunity with ClickUp, right? It's not a problem. There's some problems that exist.
There's going to be problems,
but it's an opportunity. It's like a level 10 opportunity. And for you to give a level 3 effort to it would be a disservice to yourself and to everybody else around it.
It's not possible.
So you got to give a level 10 effort to it. So everybody needs to step back and identify, like, do I have a level 10 problem or opportunity in my marriage? Do I have a level 10 problem or opportunity in my finances? Like, am I in $30,000 worth of credit card debt? Or have I made a bunch of money that should be invested properly? Like, what are my like really important things in my life right now? And put the appropriate effort into that. Figure out where you want to get to and build the path.
I've got a few level 10s. I think even some other ones I'm probably putting like level 8, level 7, So I think even those small tweaks.
Yeah.
Just rearranging, like taking something else that's probably level 3 that I'm giving level 8 time.
That's right.
Sliding that down.
And that's the
I'm already thinking right now, wheels are turning.
Yeah, that's the mistake that people are making. And so years ago, Bedros and I used to run this fitness business summit thing. And this is where I got the idea from, because every year, it was like 10 years that he ran it, and I would speak at it every year. And every year I'd look out and I'd see the same people. It was always the same people coming, and they were sitting in the same seats. And like, oh, there's James, Jenny, and Johnny. This year they're 8% body fat and they have $8 in their bank account because they don't know sales and marketing. So we would teach them sales and marketing, and then on the breaks they would go and talk to the other personal trainers about workouts and nutrition. And after the event, sure enough, they would go home, put all the sales and marketing stuff up on the shelf. It's their level 10 problem, and they would put it up on the shelf and give it a level 1 effort. And they would take all the nutrition tips that they got from other trainers, which was a level 1 problem, their body fat, and they would give it a level 10 effort. And next year they would come back and I'd see, oh, there's James, Johnny, and Jenny sitting in the same seats. And this year they're 7% body fat and they got $7 in their bank account. And it was just level 10 effort, level 1 problem, level 1 effort, level 10 problem.
Simple when you look back at it.
And that's the dark side of discipline, is because you get that dopamine hit when you go and start a YouTube channel or something instead of having that hard conversation with your business partner. So the thing that we recommend people do is step back, do the thinking, identify your level 10 problem or your opportunity in life, and then be honest and rate yourself. What level of effort are you giving to it? And then the next thing to do, which is not actually in the book. I totally forgot to put this in the book. But make a list of 10 bullet points and describe, what would it look like for me to put a level 10 effort into this problem?
Ooh.
So let's say at ClickUp, there's this thing that you're working on. It's a level 10 problem. And you look at it and you go, I'm doing well. I'm giving it like a 6.5 or a 7 out of 10 right now. Okay. Well, Chris, what would it look like for you to put a level 10 effort in this problem? What additional things would you do? And when you write all those things down, then there's going to be some that be like, this would have an immediate impact. This would have a huge impact. And you focus on those things first and you chip away at it. And then all of a sudden that problem, it gets kicked to the curb. And then another one comes, of course, and you start putting the level 10 effort into it.
So that's the formula.
That's it, man.
I'm taking that. I'm going to do that later today.
Listen, man, life is simple. Humans just love to make it
We sure
hard.
do. when you take a step back and you start looking at things like how you got to where you are, a lot of things were simple, but it's just doing it consistently or doing it right or making the right choice. Like a lot of these hard things, a lot of these things we push off are not even that hard. Sticking with it.
Yeah.
But a lot of things we push off aren't even that hard. You know, taking care of your credit, whatever it may be. Like all these things are easy to let go of, but when you put it top of mind and take action on it.
And the worst thing of all is that, especially the conversations, is that at one point they were really easy. You could have solved it in like one simple conversation.
It gets so much more complex.
And then the molehill becomes a mountain because you
learn more lessons.
Passive aggressive about it. And, I've seen people's marriages implode because they. I'd be at their house and they'd be like passive aggressive at dinner. It's like, why don't you guys just have a conversation?
Like, we don't need to like beat each other up. Yeah.
Get it out right now. And then 6 months later, all of a sudden, it's like 2 week separation because they just didn't deal with the level 2 problem, which became a 3, which eventually became a level 10.
I'm glad we did this before I get married. Now I know.
Man.
Now I know to stay on it quick.
And I tell you what, the greatest thing, my wife is awesome for so many things, but she just forced me into the hardest conversations before we got married, and I think that made all the difference.
I think it does
before we got married. We got married about a year and a half after we met. We probably knew each other better than people that had been married for 10 years. We probably had conversations that people married 25 years haven't had, and I think that made all the difference.
It's a big one to think about. I think I found myself. I used to not be good at the hard conversation, but I got better. I'm just a nice guy, I didn't want to have it.
Sure.
I've gotten way better over the past couple of years at that. And it's more like a gain to myself. Like, okay, usually I see it like, because you journal, you learn a lot through journaling. I'm like, okay, this is something I would usually wait to do. Let's just go ahead and do this shit right now.
Right, rip the bandage off.
So good. But then you get better at it. Then it becomes normal. But
everything's a learnable skill.
Everything. If you take action toward it and you're aware of it.
Yeah. Absolutely.
All right, man. So I think it went a little longer than usual for this one, but I'm pretty excited. We nailed it. We talked about the book. Anything else you want to bring up, run through, or say? I think we hit a little bit of everything.
Man, I just want to go back to that phrase that I used before, that everything in life is easier when you know more good people.
That is.
Like, I'm introverted by nature, poor farm boy, became a personal trainer, but it didn't stop me because it's so much easier just to go and ask for help. And what you have to do is you have to add value to people's lives. You have to add value
first. Otherwise, you can't just go around asking people.
Right.
But if you go around, I think that's one of the keys I found when I was early is I just started adding value to everyone where I could. Even if it's something small, whatever I could, I would just add a little value. And then if it ever is time for me to come back and ask, I do it in like a thoughtful way.
Sure.
But it's quite rare anyway. Most of the time I'm just trying, like a lot of times with I see someone like post something, I wish I knew I wish I knew someone who's good at physical training, whatever.
Sure.
Like, okay, I know this guy. He's great.
Making introductions is a great way, but just listening sometimes is a value add to a lot of people.
Most people don't get to listen to. And then teach people how to think. Like you said, I think a lot of people don't like schedule time on their calendar to think. I make sure I do that now too, because that's really important.
Oh man!
Otherwise, we'll just keep moving and taking tasks and taking action and running here, running there. But you have to sit down and take time to think where you want to be, where the problems are.
Man, that's what the billionaires do. They think.
I got that book, How Rich People. I think it's called How Successful People Think. That's all it is. Super John Maxwell.
Yeah, it's John Maxwell books.
It's like towards the end. It's a super small book. I read it probably like once a year just to reread, and that's towards the end of the book. I love it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thanks so much, man. I'm glad you're here. This is awesome.
Thank you, sir.